no doubt Trump wants some revenge.
Sure.
Right? On the law firms, on press, whatever, But let's not beat around the bush. All these institutions did want to cancel Trump.
Yeah.
Did want him inoperable in mainstream public. I think the biggest mistake, and I did not follow the Pied Piper on this one, which was this idea that we deplatform everybody post January 6th. This is a democracy. This is a First Amendment. And all of a sudden now you've got law firms or what's going on and all this stuff. It's like, look, that was a bad moment. That doesn't mean, look, I understand the passion of that moment.
Right.
Yeah.
But my God, the whole point of the Constitution is to protect minority rights, not majority rights. Yeah. The whole damn thing was written to protect minority rights. And so, you may not like that speech, but speech is speech. And the decision to deplatform bit mainstream media in the ass. Why? Okay, Donald Trump started his own information ecosystem. How do you like them apples now?
Right.
And then, I sit here, it's like traditional media, what's happened?
Yeah.
You did try to deplatform him.
Yeah.
It was a mistake. Somebody ought to come up and say, this was a mistake.
It took Chuck Todd leaving Meet the Press, Chris Cuomo, I put him in the same category, to speak like normal human beings now. Isn't it interesting? You saw from the intro, he points out how it was a mistake for mainstream media to attempt to cancel Donald Trump. And when Donald Trump uses his influence, his fame, because he's an influential figure, you cut him out of the conversation. Effectively, you created an echo chamber, as the left like to frame this. But in reality, it just shows more proof that the media is not actually there to inform people. It's there to create buy-in. It's there to create a public perception. This is propaganda. And in this video, I want to show and highlight some ways that tactically, if you look at mainstream media, if you look at legacy corporate media as a biased institution, a lot of things they do makes complete sense. Recently, I just found out, I'm still doing some research on the story, but Pete Hegseth has been accused of another story again, another leak, another anonymous source telling them, Pete Hegseth did this the same way an anonymous source told them that Biden is sharp and ready for his debate against Donald Trump. And what reality shows you, that was a lie. And this use of anonymous sources, I think, is one of the biggest crux that hurts the credibility of legacy media. But I digress. I want to show you this clip highlighting an example of how Donald Trump is tired of the mainstream media. But I think Donald Trump, his reaction to the stories is like the same thing I feel when I hear these stories. Again.
I hear they're doing that whole thing again. Here we go again. Just a waste of time. He is doing a great job.
Why do you still have confidence?
Because he's doing a great job. Thanks, Ask the Houthis how he's doing. Ask the Houthis how much this function has. There's none. Pete's doing a great job. Everybody's happy with him. We have the highest recruitment numbers I think they've had in 28 years. No, he's doing a great job. It's just fake news. They just bring up stories. I guess it sounds like disgruntled employees. He was put there to get rid of a lot of bad people, and that's what he's doing. So you don't always have friends when you do that.
And I got a clip of Lee Zeldin confronting the New York Times on their bias. And this is a problem. I'm telling you. Journalism is the most liberal profession here in the United States of America. It's a very biased institution. And a lot of their bias bleed into their work. The same way that Google employees said, no, we're objective and we make sure that no bias is filtered into Gemini AI. And what happened during its first release? Gemini AI was printing out black Nazis. Historical, inaccurate image generation. You ask the Gemini AI, hey, give me a family, and it's multiracial families. You tell me, hey, give me a black family, it gives you a single mom. Oh, but if you put a white family, we can't generate that for you. It may induce stereotypes. Make it make sense. But bias don't bleed into your work, journalist. Blind to their own bias. Blind to the fact that public perception has turned on them. Just like public opinion has turned on the Democratic Party on immigration, the mainstream media or the legacy media, however you want to call these people who work in corporate media, they do not understand the position and the predicament that they're in right now. They're like a kid that's not aware that they're in trouble, big trouble. And Lee Zeldin here is going to confront them on some of their inaccuracies and how their bias has corrupted their reporting to the fact that It no longer serves a function for the American people now. This is why you got people on in their room just speaking about the news, giving their opinions. It's better an information network than what the mainstream media have, and they got millions, billions of dollars behind them. Make it make sense. Because people know your aims. Like I said, if you look at the media as a biased institution, it makes perfect sense why they do stuff like this. It makes perfect sense why they focus so much on scandals and leaks from anonymous sources. If the person can't put their name behind their accusations, that should be a signal that they're not really confident in their accusation. But the media goes with it. Why? Because it gives a public perception, it gives a negative perception on Donald Trump's administration. It's another thing they can distract the American public with. Look here. He has leakers. He's using Signal. I think Americans don't care at this point. But I digress. Let's listen to Lee Zeldin rip New York Times a new one over their biased coverage. Let's take a look.
How is that zero evidence? How is it no evidence? How can any paper, Politico has written it, Washington Post has written it, the New York Times has written it, others have written that there's no evidence. And now we're all together, and I'm glad that we are. And it's April 21st? It's April 21st, 2025. Why should any story get written after today that says no evidence? Go ahead.
Just a question, sir. Oh, sorry. Thanks, Lisa Friedman with the New York Times. Where has a judge said that this is fraud?
I'm saying New York Times said it, Lisa. Lisa, if New York Times is going to write that there is no evidence.
Not true, sir. We've written that that judges have not found.
Okay, over
Is
the
that
last
accurate?
few months, Lee Zeldin, administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency, has made explosive, you know this because you wrote it, has made explosive accusations against the Biden administration, accusing it of insane malfeasance in its handling of $20 billion in climate grants. Now, as a legal battle ensues over those funds, many of Mr. Zeldin's claims remain unsupported and some are flat out false. Why wouldn't you write that there is any evidence?
Could you point us to where the judges have found that there's waste, fraud,
Oh,
and
see,
abuse,
it's
sir?
not that easy for you, Lisa. See, because you guys are writing stories. These are your words. These aren't the judge's words. So if you want to ask the question.
So as you get an example of them trying to create a framing, right? And this is what I'm talking about, perception. They're trying to color your lens. They're trying to make you say, okay, this case is bogus. They got no evidence. But they got no evidence that they're not doing these things. And these are just claims. Like, this is my problem with these fake fact checks from this biased, almost curse, institutions called the legacy mainstream media. These people, they say, oh, he's saying this claim without evidence. That's not a fact check. That's not a fact check. It's not. A fact check is, here's evidence saying that your statement is false because of X, Y, Z reasons. Fact check is, this statement is true because of X, Y, Z reasons. Here's evidence suggesting that this is a false claim. That's a fact check. A fact check isn't Donald Trump made a statement without evidence. The mainstream media makes statements without evidence all the time. He just called out a New York reporter for doing just that, creating a negative perception about something that's inconvenient to her party, her preferred party, because she's a journalist, and journalists are disproportionately liberal. So there's a high probability that she's a liberal defending her party. And this is why many people are like demanding more diversity in journalism. Not diversity of skin color, diversity of political ideology, because we have realized, and I think the American public has realized, that there's not enough, they need more conservatives in there. They need more non-liberals in there, because these liberals, in journalism at least, are ruining the profession. I said it numerous times on this channel, journalism has become a new form of activism, and it no longer serves the purpose of informing the American people. It serves the purpose of now defending Democrats' imagery, branding, and position. That's the new job of the journalist in today's era. I digress. Let's continue with the video.
Question, I'm referring to one of your stories. And this came out before the judge's decision came out. Now, if you were to, did you read the judge's 39-page decision?
Sir, with all due
Have you read the
respect,
39-page decision?
We've read the decision. We are basing our reporting on judges' rulings before then and since. And I'm just asking you, sir, where has the judge found that there is waste, fraud, and abuse?
So you read the 39-page decision supporting a preliminary injunction? What? It's okay if you say no.
No, I've read all of it.
Okay, that's okay. Nowhere in it does it acknowledge anything that I just said. It doesn't even acknowledge it. So if the New York Times wants to say that there is no evidence, and Politico wants to say it, and Washington Post wants to say it, and others want to say that there's no evidence. See, I have a job to make sure that I don't waste tax dollars. And then for people in the media to be willing to sacrifice your own integrity and the integrity of your paper to make a claim that there's no evidence supporting it, well, I could stand here before you, and I just went through a list of how many things did I just mention? 10? I don't know what the list is. And then you'll go out and write a story saying that there's no evidence of any wrongdoing. I have a duty to make sure that we don't light on fire billions of dollars of tax dollars. And I am, as administrator of EPA, not going to stand before any member of the media and get bullied into lighting billions of dollars on fire. And then you'll continue to write these stories that say that there is no evidence, even though I could stand before you right now and just go through the list. How do you square that?
May I ask, sir, do you feel confident that a court will uphold?
I'm
that
asking you,
have
how do you
found-
square that?
I'm asking
You
you
guys are
if a
writing the
court
stories.
will uphold
Shouldn't
that
you
found-
write?
I think this is a redirection from the reporter, because the reporter kind of got called out and put on the spot there. And this is what happens when you confront them. Like, okay, what evidence you have to suggest this position you're taking, this framing that you're positioning the story in? And I think that's the problem that Lee Zeldin's having, is that you want to make something about he have no evidence, but he works in the EPA. He's privy to information that is not privy to the public. But somehow you're confidently saying that he has no evidence, and you don't even put his own words in writing. And that's one thing I try not to do. When people are saying stuff, I make sure I put their video on there. I make sure I let them say it with their own mouth. Then I talk about, or then I give my framing about how I agree or disagree with their statements. The media don't even give him that courtesy. They don't even quote him. He said they don't even acknowledge anything I said, because it's all about guiding people's perception. And you wonder why the American people trust journalists less than they trust a lawyer. You heard that right. Let's continue.
Write the
waste fraud,
story
and
about
abuse.
what kind of evidence has been put out? Why not write the story? Why not write the story that says, hey, here's the 25 things that Administrator Zeldin says that he calls evidence. And then you could be critical of it if you want to. But how about instead of, why would you not write that story?
Could you speak, though, to why a judge has not supported this, has not said, yes?
The district
EPA
court
has
judge
found
didn't even have
case fraud and
jurisdiction to
abuse?
hear the case. Why the judge writes a 39-page opinion and doesn't even acknowledge that this even exists? Go read page 29. Oh, this is a good one. You're a reporter for the New York Times. You're probably going to be all over this. Look
Hold on to it.
at footnote 7 on page 29.
I will.
Okay, and the judge says that there was no action, no amendment that was made post-election. Well, I mean, I'm looking forward to the story that says, well, what about January 13th of 2025, 1 week before inauguration? The accounts were being amended. And then talk about what the amendment was. It was an amendment to reduce EPA oversight, to make it harder to conduct oversight. The judge actually says that nothing happened after the election. So I am imagining that you are going to be filled with so much outrage when you read that footnote to the judge's opinion that says that doesn't even
Make it make sense. So he called out the judge for essentially either not being aware of what's going on in the process of the government and playing cover up. And this is just another argument about how the fallacy of authority is truly a true thing. Right? These people use their position of authority, these judges, right? And at the end of the day, this is one of the reasons why experts are being less trusted now, almost more than ever before, is because people are starting to realize, hey, these people are using their status as experts in their field to craft a narrative that suits their preferred party, their own ends, their own interests, and people are noticing how these positions can be abused. And when the media comes out and they get criticized for this, instead of confronting this or reflecting and improving on this and try to assuage people's concerns with the abuse of status and position of authority, they double down, they triple down. They say, they point their fingers at you, say, no, sit down, shut up. And people are like, no, you sit down, you shut up, because you've been wrong too many times. When you hear stories about how Fauci's net worth doubled during the pandemic years, people that hints at some conflict there. People start getting some concerns there. And it doesn't help the fact that he got pardoned as well by Joe Biden. Interesting. So people are starting to see that people in the media, people in these high positions, people with these platforms use and abuse their position to push a certain perception, to try to convince the American people to go down a certain route, to see someone in a certain lens. And this is why from the beginning I showed that Chuck Todd video. It showed that they tried to do this to Donald Trump. They tried to weaponize their platforms to essentially ostracize this man from public thought. And it didn't work. And now he's putting the screws on them. He's putting in his own media now. The legacy media's position is threatened as the knowledge distribution network of the United States of America. And now they're running scared. But the funny part is they did it to themselves by shooting their own credibility in the foot, by not confronting their bias. NPR, anyone? NPR, you have editorials, and all of them are Democrats. You have no conservative editorials in the NPR, and you expect it to be an objective news network. National Public Radio, but all your editorial people, all your leadership is Democrat. How is that representative of America? NPR gets confronted with this fact that they did anything to change it? Nope. NPR reports that Donald Trump's administration is looking for a new press secretary of defense. What evidence do they have? Anonymous sources. How I know you're not lying. And this is how the mainstream media hurt its credibility. This is how the mainstream media gets branded as a biased institution and continues to affirm that theory. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'd like to hear your thoughts, your perspective on this matter. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Please share this video if you feel so inclined. It really does help me out in the algorithm. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.